Okay, we are live. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 22nd, just a hair after 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We are live, unless you're listening to this on my podcast or YouTube replay. So we're going to get right into it. If you're not familiar with my webinars, not a lot of fluff. I get into the strategies and tactics pretty darn quickly. So I hope you're ready to take a lot of notes. I hope your phone's on mute. I hope you got distractions limited. And seriously, your hand may be tired from writing by the time we're done. And yes, we are recording this. I will send you the recording or the link to the recording later today. I will send you the PowerPoint slides. I will send you some of the guides, some of the free complimentary things that we offer. You're going to get it all sent to you in an email sometime later today. If you're listening to this on the podcast or YouTube as a replay, just reach out to me, bill@referralcoach.com, bill@referralcoach.com, and tell me you want all the stuff from the April webinar on unsolicited referrals. I see a hand is already raised. We're not going to be answering any hands that are raised. In fact, I got to let you know that the chat has been disabled on purpose by myself today, so I can't watch the chat. As you know, it frequently goes through quickly. So if you have a question or a comment or anything at all, just put it in the Q&A. That is open. I will look at that from time to time, and we'll get your response. There is my email address again on the slide, billcates@referralcoach.com or bill@referralcoach. Either one works. If we don't get to a question or your question doesn't get answered, just shoot me an email. I'm pretty responsive. We have well over 300 people registered for today's webinar. Pretty excited about that. Obviously, a pretty important topic, getting referrals without asking. All right, so what do you want? What do I want? What does everybody want? More qualified prospects as efficiently as possible, right? Time efficiently, cost efficiently. And so how do most affluent clients meet their financial advisor? Study after study after study kind of comes up with the same information. What I'm going to quote here is from Michael Kitces. Some of you know Michael's work. He was on episode 98 of my podcast, Top Advisor Podcast. Go get it. It's free. 45% of new clients find their advisor through a direct referral from a friend, family member, colleague. Another 20% from like a CPA, attorney, etc. So 65%, 2/3 of the people you want to meet you through a direct referral or introduction. The remaining third, roughly 25%, through networking events, seminars, client appreciation gatherings, things like that. In other words, just about everybody you want to meet wants to meet you through a human-to-human connection. In some form or another, it's a human-human connection. And the last 10%, social media, books, blogs, direct mail, all the other stuff that people get very enamored with. Now, I'm not saying that some of that stuff shouldn't be in your toolkit and can't work there, and there's always exceptions. I was talking to an advisor just yesterday who gets 80% of his clients through all his LinkedIn activity, but that is an outlier. Most people, as you know, want to meet you through a recommendation from someone they already trust. So I think it makes sense to build a business, to base your business based on how people want to meet you. That's the path of least resistance, the least friction for you and for them. And it's just a matter of having the processes in place and maybe a little bit of courage from time to time to try something that you might not have tried in the past. By the way, if you want to get the results of Kitz's study, I have it in kind of a simplified form, along with my commentary and some ideas that apply to the study. Just go to multiplyourbestclients.com. It's free. Share it with the world. multiplyourbestclients.com. Sometimes I go a little too fast for my own good. And please remember this, cold calls, or I should say, and bad leads are your punishment for failure to get enough referrals. If you got anybody in cold call hell or bad lead hell, you see a lot these days, then you're in the right place. All right, so you're going to see that we deal on the level of 3 levels: principles, strategies, and tactics. And all of these are very important. I know you want the tactical stuff, and you're going to get it. I'm going to give you some very specific things to say and things to do. But I'm also going to try to give you some of the principles along the way, because when you know the principles, if I'm not there to help, usually you can figure out what the strategy and the tactics should be, or at least it's going to help you a lot. So you're going to see we're going to deal on those levels. Because most people want to meet you through a relationship of some sort, a human-human connection, I have what I call the relationship marketing system that I use in my coaching and teaching. And really three main components. There's other ancillary components, but one is relevance, having good, relevant messaging. If your messaging isn't relevant, you're going to be ignored. And I wrote a book called Radical Relevance that goes into depth around that. And the principle behind that is empathy, meaning when you deliver your marketing message, whether it's website, LinkedIn profile, email, whatever it is, make sure that your ideal clients can see themselves in the messaging, that they get that you get them. And one of the easiest ways to create that is through a target market, building a reputation in a very clearly defined target market. When you're clear on the who you're trying to meet, everything kind of falls into place. We'll touch on that a little bit later today. And the principle of play here is social proof. People need validation. And when they see us, and that's part of what LinkedIn and some of the content marketing you can do, it does help with that social proof side of things. But building a reputation, what that does is you move from push prospecting into attraction marketing. And then referrals, and that's going to be the big topic here today, of course, in this case, without asking. What's working there? Well, borrow trust, right? Huge. We borrow the trust in one relationship long enough to earn our own trust in a new relationship. And then you got to become super referable. That's another principle, which we're going to cover in depth here today. And you probably can guess that all these three things kind of play together, right? If you're targeting a specific market, your message is going to be more relevant. It's easier to get more referrals. The fastest way to relevance with someone who doesn't know you is an introduction from someone they know and trust. So all of these play together and work together to create exponential growth, where you get to multiply your best clients, multiply your ideal clients. So that's a little bit how principles come into play here. And so here's our agenda. It's very simple. I've prepared a lot of content for you, by the way. And also, by the way, if you don't like a topic I'm on for a couple of minutes, don't worry, hang in there because it's going to change fast. I got a lot to cover. We are going to talk about becoming more referable. That's pretty key. We're going to talk about creating true advocates. What do you need to do to create advocates for your business? And why are advocates important? What do they mean to your business? We're going to touch on building a reputation, and I'm going to show you where you can get some more information for free on that, because my next webinar is going to be on that in May. And we're going to talk about in promoting, encouraging, and teaching, just shy of asking. We're not going to talk about the actual ask. I'm a big believer in asking, but you're here because maybe you don't want to ask or you want to try to get more without asking. And then the all-important getting connected. Here's the deal. Word of mouth, willingness to refer is not enough anymore, is it? Because for all kinds of reasons, people put off doing the work you do. Sometimes our clients and centers of influence don't always talk about us in the right way, and so that's almost worthless. We've got to get connected. So I want to make sure we focus on that a little bit here today, not just the referral, not just the word of mouth, etc. All right, so don't forget, if you have a question or a comment, put it in the Q&A. I've disabled the chat. We're not raising hands or anything like that. Everything's going to be there because I'm by myself today and I want to be able to keep track of everything. All right, so let's become super referable. First of all, how do you know you're referable? Well, you're getting referrals without asking. Everyone on this call, myself included, should be getting unsolicited referrals and introductions. That's a barometer that our value is worth sharing. I have folks that call me for coaching sometimes and they'll say, my clients love me, but I say, well, are you getting any unsolicited referrals? Tell me about those. Are you getting enough? Are you getting the right kind? And they go, well, I really don't get very many, but my clients love me. I go, all right, let's go back to that my clients love me statement, because we should all be getting some if we're doing the right things for our clients. And we want to deal on a few different levels with our clients in the engagement that we create with our clients to become more referable. First of all, we got to create the value connection. Most of you are probably pretty darn good at that. As you know, early on in a new relationship, some of the best value comes from the questions you ask, not the things you teach, but the questions you ask. And of course, teaching is important too. And responsive service is important, and a good staff, a good team backing you up. All of that value connection, very, very important, not to diminish that. We also have to create the personal connection. That begins the referability, because if someone sees your value, but they don't like you, trust you, first of all, they probably won't do business with you. But the level of value and the level of relationship necessary to keep a client isn't at the same level necessary to get them to start to talk about you to others. We're going to get into that a little bit further in a minute, but creating that personal connection is so, so important. And then you become super referable when you think in terms of transformations. Now, all of you on this call are probably creating some transformational experiences for your clients. Sometimes it's a product, sometimes it's awareness, knowledge can do that. Sometimes it's the experience, but very few advisors think about transformations. And so I've got a new program coming out called the Transformational Advisor, and I'm going to dip into that a little bit in a few minutes. I think you're going to find it very interesting and very helpful. And I think it's really the future of this business. All right. So when you look at your client journey, there's really three unequal parts to that. There's the prospect experience, the early courtship, usually, most of the time, the shortest part of the relationship. Not always. Then there's the new client experience, the onboarding, the first, let's call it the first 90 days. And then there's the ongoing experience. And we've got to make sure that we are working on those three levels. Are we creating a value connection? Are we creating a personal connection? And are we starting to generate those transformational experiences? And when we're staying in touch with clients over time, we want to make sure we're touching on all three of those. So, why are my slides not changing? There we go. So, do you have a client engagement plan? Some people call it client service plan. That's fine. I think in terms of engagement, it's a little more robust than just service. That's what I call it. So you make sure you have one and make sure you follow it, because I can tell you, your clients can tell if you have a plan for engagement or if you don't. They can tell if you're winging it when it's how you stay in touch. And with a lot of my coaching clients, that's one place we need to look, because a lot of folks don't have quite the robust and the checklist that needs to be in place. A lot do, but a lot don't as well. And here are just a couple of examples, some screenshots I took. I will send these to you, so don't have to. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I will get these off to you in when I send you the replay and the slides. But the one on the left is one that I created. It's just kind of a template as an example. And you can see this is when you segment your clients. You got your A's, your B's, your C's. You know, you can't give everybody the same level of engagement, and it's not always appropriate to give everybody the same level of engagement. And you want to make sure that in this engagement that you are, again, touching on the value, you're delivering value. You got value-oriented meetings, value-oriented phone calls, and you also have personal connection building events and phone calls. Now, on the right, this is from an actual one of my coaching clients. I've taken his company's name off of it to protect the innocent, and you can see it's pretty robust. What we did from this is we actually created a checklist, so his staff, his team members know exactly what to do for whom when, which is very important. You can see what at what level of assets under management they get what. So again, it's segmented. The top box, the red box there, these are all what we call value connection. Now, can some of these be transformative as well? Absolutely, right? And then also he has the personal connection items as well, client appreciation events, dinners, cards, gifts, things like that. So we got to make sure we're dealing on both levels all the time. So look at your plan. What does your client engagement plan look like? Is it built in with both value connection and personal connection? And if you don't have a lot in this area, go slow. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but just maybe a little bit more than what you're doing now. And this is critical to becoming more referable and getting referrals without asking. This is part of that experience we're starting to create. All right. We're going to do a couple of little lessons on brain science here, very, very short. One of them is this. The purpose of the brain is to keep the organism alive, right? So in that, it's trying to reduce energy expenditure. It's trying to reduce the calories we expend. And some of us, after COVID, I put on literally wore the COVID-19, if you will. I've gotten rid of that since, thank goodness. But, nature, the brain is fighting that. But what does that mean to you? It means that clarity is so important that if any of your messaging or any of your process isn't crystal clear, it confuses in any way, then you're going to lose opportunity. There's no question because you're making their brain work too hard, and the brain fights against that. Now, some people will focus through, and that's fine, but you do lose opportunity. So today, I want to focus on what I call process clarity. There's a lot of places clarity come into play, but in this case, I want to focus on process clarity. The process of becoming a client. What does that look like? In neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience, in fact, it's called cognitive fluency, which essentially means if the information is easy to process, it's clear, it's easy to understand, people are more likely to trust it, to believe it, and then they're more likely to act on it. So that's the principle, the neuroscience principle behind what I'm teaching you here. All right, so I'm a bit of an adventurer. I've hiked to Everest Base Camp. I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I've camped in the Arctic Circle, and I don't know if I would do what this guy's doing, trying to cross this stream because it's pretty fast moving, and you never know when you're going to get a pothole in the middle of that. But think of it as just your clients are on one bank of the river or the stream, and you want to get them to the other side. Yeah, you want to get them from prospect to client. If they don't know what those steps look like, if they can't see the stepping stones, the path to becoming a client and then beyond, it's an unknown, it lacks clarity, and you lose people. If you ever wonder why you maybe had someone who seemed interested, but then interest was lost, there's a number of reasons of why that could happen, but one of them could be that you didn't show them your stepping stones. So you want to make sure that you have very clear, and I'm going to give you some very concrete advisor examples in just a second, that show them how to get from one side to the other. And when they're clear on that, they will more likely take this. It just kind of makes common sense, doesn't it? So here's one. This actually is from Julia Carlson, who, by the way, has an 8-figure business, not a 7-figure business. She has an 8-figure business. And this is what she uses. She has a nice graphic representation. I interviewed her for my podcast not too long ago. I can't remember where I got this one from, but this is another simple one. You know, the graphic art isn't so sophisticated, but it gives an idea, right? Discovery, gather data, develop a plan, present the plan, implement the plan, monitor and update. Pretty standard kind of process that you may have something similar. Now watch this one for a second. This is a little short video. I love this. This is like the gold standard. If you go to this guy's website and you click on the different meetings, you're going to see how much time passes between the first meeting and the second meeting and what's likely to be covered and how long the meeting is going to last. Man, this is crystal clear on his process. And he closes, by the way, at a very, very high rate. About 85 to 90% of his prospects become clients. So have a clear path and then illustrate it with have a graphic illustration. You may already have that, it might be on your website. Just make sure you're using it. You will convert more prospects into clients. And this feeds into your referability because when they're clear about the process you took them through and they're going through, it makes them easier and more confident to talk about you to others. So just as a reminder, yes, if you joined us late, yes, we are recording this. Yes, you will get the PowerPoint slides in a PDF version, and we will send you guides, all the different little guides and tools and things I'm talking about here. We'll send that to you as well. All right. And if you have questions, make sure you put it in the Q&A box. The chat's been disabled. All right. So let's talk about that onboarding, that first 90 days. This is a huge opportunity that often gets overlooked and underutilized. A lot of advisors think they have to wait a long time to become referable, and you don't. You can actually become referable in the very first meeting, as long as value is delivered and value is recognized, right? That's when you're becoming referable. So let's dip into the onboarding just for a second. I'm going to give you a couple of very concrete examples of what some advisors are doing out there. So remember, we're engaging on the level of value and we're engaging on the level of personal connection, and both of those can create a transformational experience. And so here's some things. You'll get the slides, so don't worry about copying these all down. You'll get all these. But If a client is engaged in philanthropic community service, that kind of hits on both value because you can help them within philanthropic contributions, tax advantage, all that, but also creates a connection on the personal side. I'll tell you one of the easiest things to do is just make sure you review the statements with your new clients the first or second month. A lot of smart, confident people still don't understand how to read the statements. So this is a simple thing you can do, very easy. Invitation to educational events. Make sure, in addition to educational events that you might be doing, like educational seminars, make sure you're also doing educational events just for your clients, right? Could be virtual, could be in person, could be a combination, and make sure they're getting invited to those as well, yeah, along the way. And if you're doing them regularly enough, then your new clients within 90 days will get invited to at least one and maybe even two of those educational opportunities. And then enhancing the business friendship, right? Creating that personal connection. Big believer in breaking bread with clients. Big believer also in meeting clients outside of your office or outside of their office in different locations. Because when they come into your office, it's a business setting. They talk kind of business. You get into some personal stuff usually. But man, walking them to their car. I know one advisor that likes to take walks with clients on nice days, and they'll just meet at a park at a central location. And he told me it builds the business friendship. He sometimes gets referrals without asking. Just building that business friendship. Let other team members contact your brand new clients as well. So, Todd, I see your question has come through, and we will get to that. I promise. All right. All right. So let me give you a couple of examples. I love this from Lester. Lester had kind of on his bucket list. He always wanted to see what it would be like to tend bar. So his wife said, "Well, why don't you put on a client appreciation event and you can be the bartender and have fun with clients?" So that's what he did. And all the clients brought one of their bucket list items because they knew this was one of his bucket list items. And it became a great party and a great event. And people were talking about their bucket list items with each other. And this is now the ongoing theme with his clients. He finds out what is on that concrete bucket list, things that they want to do. And he supports those. Sometimes he supports them with connections, sometimes just keeping it alive, keeping it in awareness. And a lot of times, funding those dreams, right? Because there's nothing worse than an unfunded dream. Here's another great example, kind of a similar thing, but she calls it Live It List, right? It's the same basic idea, just a semantics thing, obviously. But for her, it's just not helping clients with the financial planning, but it's really, and she actually puts on trips for her clients. She has some folks who are just now in her Live It List communities. It's kind of become another part of her business. And so this is what creates transformations, right? Funding someone's bucket list can create a transformative experience in someone's life. Creating experience on their Live It List can transform people's lives. I got one more, I think, on this one. Yeah, Brian Sweet. He has what he calls a 90-day dazzle. Now, he doesn't tell his clients he's going to dazzle them for 90 days. That might be setting up for missed expectations. But his team knows that they're trying to do that. So they have a host of things, kind of like I share with you, they're going to do within the 90-day period. One of the big things he does, and this makes him really super referable, and this can be transformative, is helping his clients create a vision board or a dream board. Perhaps you're familiar with that. If you don't know what this is, just Google it. You get lots of examples of how to do this. We used to do this with magazines. Remember those things, magazines with glossy paper, and we cut open pictures with, cut pictures and Elmer's glue. Well, now you can do it all digitally. But imagine this. Imagine going through this with a client, especially a brand new client. What do you want to do? What do you want to have? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to help? And putting that together in pictures. Talk about a transformative experience for them and a relationship building. This hits both on the level of value and the level of personal connection. Very powerful thing to do. And most of his referrals these days come from people who've gone through this, and they talk about that, and they share that with others, and they talk about the transformative experience. So a lot of these examples I'm giving you are from people I've interviewed for my podcast. So I want to make sure you know about this if you don't already. just go to topadvisorpodcast.com to subscribe or take a look at some of the more recent episodes. I've done over 100. I think I'm about the 107 now. Very high content, just like we're doing here, but we're talking with specific people, what they're really doing to acquire new clients and to engage with their clients. Topadvisorpodcast.com. All right, here's a big one. This is probably one of the most important things I've been teaching for well over 30 years, and that is getting your clients and even prospects to speak out loud about your value, to talk out loud. And when I mean talk out loud, I mean orally, to really talk out loud. There's neuroscience behind this that talks about the value of speaking orally. You've probably experienced this. We all have, right? You have a challenge in business, personal, whatever, and you talk it out to yourself walking around the block or driving somewhere. Sometimes you come up with the answer, or you grab a friend, a family member, a colleague, you talk it out before they even contribute. You've thought of the answer, right? Because that you clarify through speaking. So speaking out loud sharpens understanding, becomes internalized as inner speech, reinforces the value, and helps your prospects and clients talk about you to others. And so what happens here when you get them to speak it out loud, they get more in touch with the value, and so do you. So what does this look like? How does this show up? Well, I call this the value discussion, and some of you already know about this. So it works to enhance the recognition of value, but it also can work to reveal unexpressed issues or places where expectations are not being met. Most of the time when you do this, because it's going to go straight to the positive, but every now and then you'll pick up on a little missed expectation, something that isn't matching, and you got to clean that up, right? That's very important. And the principle behind that, speaking of principles, is that a relationship that's had a problem that's been handled well is a stronger relationship than one that's never had a problem. Right? So when you find that stuff and you clean that stuff up, you have a stronger relationship. And I tell you, I have seen many, many people get unsolicited referrals and introductions just through this value discussion. And by the way, when you see the language, please know this, I'm not talking about fishing for compliments. If you frame it that way in your brain, then you're not going to feel comfortable doing this. You've got to frame it that you're helping your clients actually get in touch with and recognize the value, because that's important for them to know and appreciate. And then obviously you benefit from that as well. So what does the verbiage sound like? A lot of this, by the way, comes from my book, The Language of Referrals. The language of referrals. And so first or second meeting, we've covered a lot of things here today. What are one or two of the most important things we talked about, or how would you prioritize what we talked about here today? This could be after a get acquainted or a discovery meeting, right? Now, notice this is open-ended. Very important, because that's what gets them to speak it out verbally. If you catch yourself asking a closed-ended question, which could be your habit at this point, did you find today's meeting helpful, for instance? They're going to say yes. Almost nobody's going to say no. Even out of politeness, they'll say yes, right? But that doesn't do the work, right? We want them to get clearer. So if they say yes, you can say, great, well, tell me more. Or just open it up at the end. Did you find today's meeting helpful? And if so, can you tell me, what was most important, what was most valuable, right? So make sure these are open-ended conversations. Very, very important. Decision to work with you, decision to do a financial plan, decision to go into underwriting, or whatever that work may look like. Look, you made a great decision or an important decision. I know you had a lot of things to consider. I know you were interviewing a couple firms, right? All your language will different based on context, but you get the idea. And I'm curious, what tipped the scales? What made you decide to move forward today? And so that reinforces their decision, which is great. They're more in touch with it, and then you get in touch with it. You see how what you do sits with other people, how it lands on other people. And these are the places, by the way, during this value discussion, where you can promote referrals and introductions and even ask. Today's not about asking, it's about becoming more referable and promoting, but you get the idea. Review meeting, or I like to call it a progress meeting. If you have any trouble getting people to go attend review meetings, just rename it the progress meeting, because a lot of people don't want to review. They don't think there's anything to review necessarily, but they all want to make progress. Let's put the market aside. Let's put the economy aside, all the things we can't control, and let's talk about what we can control. So we're not making about market performance or economy or anything like that, right? We're making about our communication, overall working experience, anything that isn't working, any place we're falling short on expectations, anything that you think we could do better with. Make sure once you're about 6 months into the relationship that you bring this part up. Again, most of the time it's going to go to positive, but every now and then you'll find something that needs to be aired and just dealt with, and mostly it's just little stuff, right? So then you go into the positive. What is working? Tell us. So we keep doing that for you and do it for others too, right? There can be a smile on your face on this. Tell me how what you value in working with us. What's working for you? What do we make sure we keep doing for you, right? So we can do it for you and maybe even do it for others too, right? We learn when we talk to our clients about this. Very simple, very conversational, even sometimes a little bit fun. And I'm telling you, this can make a huge difference. Let me give you an example. John Lamdere is one of my coaching clients, and this email came to me. You can see from the date on it, January of last year. And still talking with John. But anyway, let me blow this up so you can see a little easier. Had a value discussion with a client, went well. She brought up that she tells everybody about me, right? Word of mouth. He discovered an advocate that he didn't even know he had just through the value discussion. Now, the next step was to make sure that this advocate was more effective, right? Because it's one thing for her to be telling people about him, but we know people put this work off. We know that if there's no connection there, it's almost wasted, not entirely, because sometimes it works, but we want to make it more effective. So then he was able to teach her, how to be more effective in talking about the work he does. So look, you can make this about the meeting, you can make it about the decision, you can make it about the process, about the relationship, really anything. I'd make this about how you interact with your clients. Make this value discussion, this value check-in, this expectations review, whatever name you want to give it, just a regular part of your meetings with your clients. By the way, I have an assessment. Some of you have gone through this because I sent an email to a lot of folks who had pre-registered for this. If you want to kind of see where you compare with others and kind of a very robust checklist, it turns into a checklist of things that you can do to generate more referrals and introductions. Go to katesreferralassessment.com. It's free. And I try to respond to as many of these as I can. It depends how many come in any given day. Let me go to Todd's question real quick, and then we'll move on. So Todd says, having significant trouble trying to model the value of referrals, giving and receiving. I want to pay others for referring me business and want a referral fee for making referrals, thinking about tiers but have no basis. All right, so Todd, hopefully you're not a financial advisor, because if you're a financial advisor, you probably don't want to do this. Now, there are some places where it could fit. You could have a relationship with an accountant or an attorney, and they get licensed, or maybe your broker-dealer has a way to compensate those folks for referrals. But generally speaking, I'm not a big believer in that. Now, if you're not a financial advisor, then that's a little different. In which case, you just got to have to have a very clear conversation with folks to see if they're open to that. Some people would contend that when you get paid and there's compensation involved, that it can cheapen the referral. Usually you want to disclose this. Now, attorneys and accountants have to disclose it. Other folks might not have to, but you want to make sure that's part of the relationship. I don't know if this is helping, but here's the key thing. It's possible, if you're having trouble making this happen, that you may not yet be as referable as you need to be with these people. One of the things about building relationships with referral partners, with strategic partners, with centers of influence, whatever name you give it, is you've got to be super referable, and that takes time. It's very hard to become very referable and create a relationship like this through one meeting. It's usually a series of meetings, a lot of education involved, a lot of display of your full process, case studies, staying in touch with the folks and with case studies so they see how your value comes to life. So there's a lot that goes into building that kind of relationship. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let's move forward here a little bit. A lot to cover. All right. So I told you I'm kind of playing with this a little bit. of a new program I'm calling the Transformational Advisor. And so here's where all this stems from. Uh, are you giving your clients something to talk about? Now, clearly, we've already covered a few things that are giving your clients something to talk about, right? But that's what we need to think about. And I want you to think in beyond just products and services, because products and services, this industry used to be built on products and services. And in a lot of cases, in some corners of the industry, it still is that. People are leading with product. People are DI specialists, they're LTC specialists, they're life specialists. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, right? But I am saying that commoditizes you, right? You're in commoditization risk. That's a hard thing to say, right? And it's hard to differentiate yourself, and it's hard to be talk worthy when you're just dealing in products and services. Now, one of the services is a financial plan. There was a time when a financial plan was a differentiator, but everyone's doing that. Now, is everyone doing it at that same level? Is everyone going as deep and wide as everyone else? No. So there are levels of the quality and the robustness of financial plans. So if you're going to use the fact you do planning and customized planning, everybody says that, by the way, that is not a differentiator. But if you want to try to use it as a differentiator, make sure you follow that with, for example, right? Bring that differentiator to life with a real live, don't use the client's name, protect their anonymity, but give a real example. All right. So products and services. Now, everybody in our industry these days are talking about the experiences, right? Now, experiences are inherently customized because no two people can have the same experience of anything. It does require some discipline, some processes, right, that we talked about in the onboarding and the client engagement plan, right? That takes discipline. It takes a process in place. Sometimes some experiences like client appreciation events and things like that are great, but they're kind of short-lived. They can wane a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, I want you to think in terms of transformations, right? What will get a client to talk about you unprompted, right? Where their friend doesn't prompt you or you don't prompt them. It's a transformational experience that you provide to them. Transformations last forever. They make you remarkable, worthy of remark. And this is what it takes to create true advocates for your clients. So what does transformation look like? Well, a client goes from fear to confidence, right? That's transformational. And a lot of you are doing that to a certain degree already. By the way, if a client has fear or anxiety when they meet you around money or around their financial future, and you put a plan in place and they start to feel more confident and clear about that, that fear, that anxiety does not go away. It's still there. It's still could be a little more dormant. But it does rear its ugly head from time to time. So it's very important, if you want this to be truly transformational, that you revisit these things with your clients from time to time to make sure that they're still feeling clear and confident, because that clear and confident can wane over time, and you got to reinforce that a little bit. So these are some of the examples of what transformation starts to look like. I was interviewing. I'm doing a speech in July for a group called Currents, which is a great tool, by the way, to help clients with their cash flow management. And I was interviewing this gentleman, and he said, by using this cash flow management program, so that's a tool, right? It's kind of a product. They don't position it as a product, but his clients are saying, you have transformed my life, because these people are going from saving 4 or 5% of their income to saving 15, 18, 20% of their income by more proper cash flow management. That's a transformational experience, right? So advice informs, experiences engage, all good. Transformations change lives. So start to think of yourself at how can you transform? How can you make more transformational experiences, right? Plans can create referrals for sure. Transformations create advocates. And that's what we want, right? You become the guide to their transformation. Remember, they're the hero of their story, and you're the guide. All right. So, what are the characteristics of an advocate? Well, they care about bringing value to others, right? Because you've made a value connection. They care about your success because you've made a personal connection. Those are two very powerful things. Now, when we get into asking for referrals, I always make it about the value. It's about value paying it forward to others. It's about them caring about the value to bring to others. But a side benefit is that if they start to really appreciate and care about us, then that's part of the motivation too. And that becomes a powerful connection. And then the good advocates, they care about making good connections. You've experienced this probably if you have an advocate. He or she will bug their friend to make sure they're working with you, or they'll contact you later, right? Did you hear from my friend? Or, do you want me to nudge her? Right? So this is the characteristic of advocates when they're making good connections to the right people. Now, I'm just going to touch on this a second and then let you know about a webinar I got coming up. We're going to go more in depth. But here's one thing I've learned that when you're clear on the who you serve, your ideal client, and having a clear target market, everything gets easier. When you have a clear target market, you know their world better, so you bring better solutions. You're a better advisor. Your messaging is more relevant, more empathetic. They see themselves in your messaging when you have, in my book, Radical Relevance. What is radical relevance? It's about radically knowing who you serve the best and not trying to be all things to all people, but being someone great to a narrower group of people. And then it's easier to create a reputation. It's easier to bring people to you when you have a very clear target market. Let me give you an example. John Landry, I mentioned earlier, uh, in Connecticut, he had some Pratt Whitney employees. When he started telling some of his Pratt Whitney clients that he was going to focus more on working in Pratt Whitney, they just started giving him more referrals, right? They just needed to know that he was focused there. So now we're going to go into depth on this one. On Tuesday, May 19th, I'm giving you a fair warning. I don't have the invitation created yet. I've just created the graphic for today. But stay tuned. You'll learn more. However you learned about this, you'll learn about the next one. But just hold the date, 2 o'clock Eastern on the 19th. And some kicker, we're going to talk about centers of influence, strategic partners, CPAs, attorneys, and other folks like that, and what it takes to become referable and get referrals and introductions from those folks. So again, that's May 19th. All right, let's talk about being appropriately proactive, short of asking. And so remember, this all has to come from you believing in your value, that you believe your value is worth sharing, because it's all about that primarily. All right. So, why referrals? Well, we already know everything gets easier when you work from referrals. Studies have shown, by the way, that clients that come into a practice through a referral are 2.5 times more likely to give a referral. And you're hearing me use the word referrals a little bit. But really, the word we want to use is the word connection and introductions. When you're with a prospect, a client, a center of influence, anybody who has ability to connect, make sure those are the words you're using. I like to pair the word comfortable with the word introduction. Let's talk about a comfortable way for you to introduce me to them. Or if you do think of someone, well, make sure it's a comfortable introduction. Let's use the word that represents what we want, because it's hard to reach people these days. And the fastest path, as I've already said, to being relevant with someone who doesn't know you and to sparking their interest and getting on their radar is to be introduced by someone they already know and already trust. So, how can we be proactive, shy of actually asking? Sometimes I call this planting or encouraging or even foreshadowing the opportunity. Simple one, some of you probably do this already, never too busy to see if I can be a resource for your friends, colleagues, family members. By the way, if you're a veteran in this business, if you're starting to get a little more selective on who you're trying to reach, then you want to use those words, never too busy to see, because that's the qualifier. You want to make sure that you're only getting in front of people who fit your business as best as you can control that. If you're newer in the business and you just need to see people, then you can take that to see out of there, right? Never too busy to be a resource, never too busy to talk to, right? They fog a mirror, I'll talk to them, meaning they're breathing. All right, we got a couple others. So Here's the friction that stops a lot of people from providing referrals, solicited or unsolicited. Uh, the two main concerns is confidentiality and how it'll play out, what it will look like, how you would handle it. Maybe they've had a bit of experience in the past. They gave somebody some names and phone numbers, and that person bugged their friends, or maybe they just fear that happening, right? That creates the friction. And so we got to remove the friction. How do you remove the friction? Teach your clients and prospects how you handle introductions, what it would look like if they did think of someone that should at least know about your important work. And so, what does that sound like? I'll send this slide to you. And this language, by the way, this verbiage, you can listen to it in the replay. It's also in my book, The Language of Referrals, and it goes a little something like this. George, a lot of my clients like to introduce me, the work I do, to other people they care about, and I just thought if that opportunity ever presented itself, it'd be good for you to have a sense of how I'd handle it, what it would look like, so you feel comfortable. And so, first of all, the everything we do is totally confidential. They're never going to learn about your financial situation from me, and vice versa. Even friends, family members, we can't cross that line. Second of all, we handle this sort of thing with great care, meaning I'm not just going to call people from out of the blue and make them wonder, why did George get my name out to this guy? Nobody likes to get those kinds of calls anymore. You and I are going to talk, and we're going to figure out what is the best way, the most comfortable way for you to introduce me to them. Feels comfortable for you, feels comfortable for them. And, if we're lucky, we spark their interest. We certainly like to do that. But first and foremost, we want it to be comfortable. How's that sound? Now, that's an easy yes. You're not really asking for introductions. I'm telling you, if you want to get more unsolicited introductions, teach people what it would look like if they thought of someone. And also, by the way, teach your centers of influence. This applies to centers of influence as well. Teach people what it would look like. Comfortable connections, comfortable introductions. We'll collaborate. We'll talk about it. We'll make sure it works for everybody. You will start seeing more unsolicited referrals just by handling those two main concerns of confidentiality and what's it going to look like, how will it actually play out. Now, don't forget, if you have a question, make sure you put it in the Q&A section. All right. I'm going fast. I know it. Hope you're finding this helpful. Here's another way. Teach your clients, and particularly centers of influence, how to recognize someone who might value your guidance, right? Teach them how you handle it. You can also teach them. And this could be in the context of asking, but it's also just a way to promote, to encourage, right? You don't have to have an expectation after this. Now, the old tried and true, they've been around forever, life events and money in motion, right? You've probably heard these things before. These work. The reason why these work is because most people, when they decide to work with a financial professional, they do it because of some trigger event, something that's happened, one of these things. These could actually be melded, right, in one sense, because since money interacts every aspect or influences every aspect of a life, any kind of life situation, money's involved. Now, what I recommend is you create your own list. It's not going to be all these things. Create 10, 15 maybe of the things that apply to you and your clientele. Have it as a leave behind, have it something you can share, something you can talk through a little bit. But if you want people to talk about you, they need to know how you're going to handle it. They need to know it's going to be confidential. And it helps when they have a sense of how to recognize someone who should know about the work. So there's lots of ways to be proactive, short of actually asking. Now, don't confuse promoting with actually asking. That's a different animal. I'm a big believer in asking. We will cover that in future webinars. You can get it from my book, The Language of Referrals, and other things on my website. But don't confuse this with actually asking, all right? This is promoting, all right? When people call me for coaching, they say, hey, Bill, is there a way to ask for introductions without looking like, and it's usually one of three words that I've now named affectionately the three Disney referral characters. Hey, Bill, is there a way to be proactive for referrals without looking cheesy, sleazy, or creepy? And of course, the answer is yes. And we've already covered some of that here today. So having a little fun. Don't forget my free assessment. see how you kind of stack up with other advisors, and you emerge with new awareness. You'll emerge with maybe some gaps exposed and things you can work on, and a whole checklist of things that you and your team can work on. I think you'll find it very valuable, and it's free but valuable. Uh, yes, I do coaching. I mentioned a couple times. If you go to coachcates.com, you can look at the programs. Usually one of the programs there fits most people that contact me. And then occasionally we have to do a hybrid. We have to do something unique for folks. So just know that what's there is pretty common, but we could also talk about what's appropriate for you. Um, Colin asks, for someone who is an introvert, how would you get more out? How would you get more out there? Oh, okay. Well, Colin, you're probably kind of talking about going to networking events and things. I am actually an introvert. Um, I, I can speak in front of a group of 10 and 10,000. I have. But when it comes going to networking events and things like that, man, and I'm going to one in a couple of weeks, I just clam up. I get very shy. If I'm the speaker, it's easy because I have a reason to be there. So I'll give you a couple of quick things, and this maybe helps other people as well. Uh, First of all, go with the attitude to serve. You're looking, how can I serve people? Go with an attitude of curiosity. Um, See who the hosts are. See who people are that run the event. Those are the people that are much more open to meeting strangers. Say, hey, it's my first event. I'm new here. Or even say, hey, look, I'm a little introverted. If you were me, who would you try to reach out to here today? Who would you try to meet? And they'll tell you who the movers and shakers on the event are. Also have a very specific goal in mind. I'm going to meet 3 new people at this event. And sometimes that helps you get to that courage. And finally, bring someone with you. Have a wingman, a wingwoman, a wing person with you at this event so you can help each other, introduce to each other. And so don't go to these events alone. Go with someone else, and that can really help a lot. I see questions coming in. Let me hit a few more slides. Let's talk about the all-important connection. Food and Drug Administration was approving a drug for the market and wants the drug to be what? Safe and effective. How does that apply to you? Well, that's what you want your introductions to be. They will need to feel safe, be effective, or another way to say that is comfortable and referable. I'm sorry, comfortable and relevant. I'm going too fast for my own good. And so how do you do that, right? Well, first of all, you want to learn as much as you can about this product. Use this referral source. Use this introducer, right? If it's not obvious, how do you know them? What made you think of them? It might be obvious. Maybe you brought that person up. But if it's not, make sure that comes out in the conversation. What do you think you need to say to them to pique their interest? How do you think they'll react to this introduction, to you introducing me with an email or whatever it looks like, right? We're doing this to get our introducers more comfortable and confident. We're also helping them figure out what is the best thing to say about us. Sometimes people will say, well, what do you want me to say about you? And have that ready, have that prepared verbally or in an email. Very, very important. Here's a question I love to ask. What's going on in their life that's important? Their life, their business. Since money intersects every aspect of one's life, whatever's going on their life's radar right now, if you can make the introduction and the follow-up to that introduction about that, now you have a very relevant introduction and a very relevant reason for why, a little more compelling for why that person should, take that call, set up that Zoom call with you as the first step. I love to ask this one as well. This often I find things I have in common. It creates fun answers sometimes. Tell me something you like or admire or respect about them, and then you can use that. Go, George is a real admirer. When we talk, I'll tell you exactly what he said. You can have fun with this. I've done this a lot, and they go, "What's he saying about me?" Right? And have a lot of fun with this sort of stuff, right? So types of introductions: in person. When it comes to financial services, in person are usually the best. As long as the logistics don't wane, right? As long as the enthusiasm doesn't wane to try to get this. If it's something they normally do, they break bread, they play golf, they go to a ball game, something like that, fine, do it. Organize it, usually pretty easy to do. But if it's out of the ordinary, then a good fallback is a Zoom 3-way. If you know you have a client who wants to introduce you and you know have a prospect who's interested, then a Zoom 3-way, very efficient, for everybody. Not quite as good as in person, but pretty darn good. Texting, your firm may have some rules around this. I usually move off the text as quickly as possible, but three-way texting can work. To make texting work better, make sure, by the way, that your contact record is in your client's mobile phone. And so when they text someone about you, they can share your contact, and then you're going to be in their phone. And if you text or call, then your name will show up, and they're more likely to pick up. My favorite is the email handshake. I love getting introduced with an email handshake. Just got 3 of them yesterday, and all 3 of those prospects responded even before I could respond, which is always nice because it came from a very trusted source. And so I have some templates for you. I knew we would run out of time to go through all of this. So these are free. Just go to electronichansshakes.com. I'll also put this link in the follow-up email to you, and you'll get 4 different templates of how to create these email handshakes, these electronic handshakes. From Anonymous. Oh, Anonymous seems to attend all of my webinars. How do you share a list of names with a client of people who would like to meet that they might know? Well, it's real simple. I'd say, Anonymous, I'm glad to see the value because I'm going to have a value discussion. I'm glad to see the value in the work we're doing. I'm glad we got a happy client. And I was hoping we could put our heads together for a second, brainstorm a little bit, see if we can identify a few folks that you think should at least be aware of the work I do. Now, I've come up with a list of some folks that I think you know pretty well, people you've mentioned, past meetings, et cetera. Can I run it by you just to see what you think? So that's all. You position it as a brainstorming. Can you run it by you just to see what you think? When you're asking, now you're into the asking here, you want to come prepared and let them know you've come prepared. That's very important because it creates curiosity and the brainstorming effect. Now, you want to have fun with this. And this is particularly good with centers of influence. And business owners. I've come up with a very short list of some folks I know they're on the board of directors of your industry association. Let me show it to you guys. If you were me, who would you avoid at all costs, right? And they'll rip that out of your hand and go, I'll tell you who to avoid. Well, these are actually all pretty good people. You're looking for introductions, right? So you can have some fun with this. So just be clear. Let them know you've come prepared. Right? And if you want, have a little fun with that. So I hope that helps a little bit. Any other questions coming in? I don't see any other questions. So I got an idea for you. We're going to wrap it up with kind of a bright idea. I hope you find helpful. Sometimes introducing you to other people, just a direct introduction, meet my advisor, isn't always comfortable for everybody, right? So if you have a tool that kind of an interim step, that can be very helpful. So a lot of folks that I've coached and just run across over the years have tools. Some advisors are writing books now, and their clients will hand the book. Some clients have checklists and articles. Jeremy Keel wrote an article about his target market and the benefits package, and that just got spread like wildfire throughout the organization. I mentioned Julia Carlson earlier, 8-figure business. Interviewed her for my podcast, one of my more recent ones. She has what she calls a retirement readiness checklist. And this is a tool that her clients and prospects and centers of influence will use as a way to introduce her to other people. So it's an interim step. Now, you still want to try to have permission to be proactive and to follow up. But nonetheless, having a tool like this can be very helpful. Russ, have you had any luck with hosting a birthday lunch or a client? Yeah, absolutely. This is tried and true, especially if they work in the same company. And so you say, hey, Russ, your birthday week is coming up, second week of May. Mine's the third week of May. So let's go with that. Third week of May. I would love to take you and maybe 3 or 4 of your colleagues from the office out to lunch just to celebrate, right? You up for something like that? It's on me, my treat. Oh, that'd be very nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, very, very powerful way. You could turn into a lunch and learn if you wanted to, but usually it's just a celebration event. You're just wishing somebody a happy birthday. Uh, Now, they don't have to all be working in the same company. That usually just makes it a little bit easier, and they usually are bringing people that are kind of like them, kind of on the same level, similar situation, same benefits package. And so now sometimes there's things come up around the benefits package at the lunch, and so that's usually a very powerful way to do it. Because also could be business owners, like 4 or 5 business owners together. Usually, you're not telling the person who to invite, but you can steer it a little bit in the direction if you want them to invite employees or if you want to invite other business owners or something like that. Um, Andrew, for those of you hanging out, please continue to hang. I'll answer questions as they come in. And don't worry, you're going to get all this, all the recording, everything. All right. So Andrew says, I followed you from afar. Thank you. 25 years. You've been a stalker. Appreciate it. Your con always on point. Helpful. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for just this is a recognition of value. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Andrew, I'm glad to see the value in the work I'm doing. Please don't keep me a secret out there. I'm never too busy to see if I can be a resource for your friends, your family member, for your colleagues, no, it'd be for your firm, right? Your agency, your broker dealer, et cetera, et cetera. For those of you raising hands, I'm not doing any raising hands here, so make sure you put it into the Q&A. There's my email again, Bill Cates at referralcoach.com. If I didn't answer your question as well as you would have liked, or you have a follow-up, or something occurs to you later, reach out, or you share this with a colleague, reach out. I'm very responsive, happy to help any way I possibly can. And by the way, I mentioned currents real quick for those of you still with us. Hey, Jay, I see a question from Jay. This is that cash flow management tool I mentioned that is really, truly transforming lives. And if you want to just check it out, just go to livecurrents.com. And I'm speaking at their Income Under Management Summit in Nashville. I'll share this link with you in the replay, but you can get $600 off. I don't make any money from this. I'm just promoting a great tool and a great event. I'll share that with you. But this cash flow management thing, this is like every advisor knows how important this is, but very few actually get into the conversation. It's a little different than budgeting. It's not about budgeting. It's a little bit different than that. So Jay, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. Always good to hear from you. Well, I think that wraps it up, folks. I appreciate the opportunity to be of service for you. I'm going to send you a bunch of stuff. Look for that email later. Feel free to share it with others. Don't keep it a secret. Share the wealth. With that, thanks for being here. I do appreciate you. And now if I can figure out how to turn this thing off, I will. Take care, everybody.